Madam President, it's a pleasure to welcome you as a representative of an important country of the Black Sea region to Odessa. And let me start by congratulating you as a Georgian on your recent anniversary of your independence.
Thank you.
What does that mean for you personally? Let's start with that. Georgia's independence over such a long, difficult history.
Personally, but I think also for many Georgians, but for me personally it's very important because I was, as you might know, born out of an immigrant family in France when Georgia was still Soviet Union, and I was born and raised in the belief that Georgia would be certainly independent again, and striving for that independence and celebrating this 26th of May outside of Georgia. Every year since my, I think, 10th birthday, I was allowed to participate. So it's both emotionally very important, and I think that it's very important for every Georgian today because we understand that this independence is not a given forever, that it's under lots of pressure today, to say the least.
Can I just interrupt and ask you, very briefly, do you see parallels in the history of Georgia and Ukraine 100 years ago? What was happening? Both, former victims of the Russian Empire.
I think we have gone through exactly the same history over the past 2 centuries almost. So we have much in common. Also, we have gone through the same also history more recently by being the subjects of Russian aggressions, military aggressions, indirect aggressions. You had little green men, we had blue helmets, Russians. So all of that makes it for both our countries that we have much in common, and that explains that there is a deep solidarity from the Georgian population and on the streets of Tbilisi.
I used to work for the UN, and I visited Abkhazia, occupied Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and I guess there are parallels with Donbass now and with Crimea and Transnistria. Okay, looking at the present situation, how does Georgia fit into the whole issue of Black Sea security? Is too much emphasis placed on Ukraine? Granted, there's a war, so it's understandable. But do you think that Georgia should be getting more European and international attention?
I think, yes, of course, that you cannot imagine a Black Sea security and cooperation policy in which Georgia would not be an integral part of. That Black Sea has become an important aspect of European Union strategy as well as NATO strategy means that you need both sides, and you need a European Ukraine, otherwise it's a Russian sea again. So I think that the stakes of this war are much more than just Ukraine. It's Ukraine plus the Black Sea, and of course in that sense it will be very important once the war is over for these Black Sea projects to come to life. It would be very important to have a really independent Georgia that would really cooperate with the Western partners.
But what I'd like to ask you is, Madam President, Ukrainians have had their peaceful revolutions, the Orange Revolution, the Revolution of Dignity. The Belarusians had their long protests against the falsification. But do you feel that the hundreds of days of protests, peaceful protests in Tbilisi and elsewhere, are getting the attention and recognition that they deserve?
Probably not. If you look at from Tbilisi, probably not. But at the same time, there are so many open crises just around us that you can understand that the limelight is going elsewhere than on the very peaceful protests that happen in Georgia. That's their characteristic, and of course it attracts less attention from journalists than when you have more action, more violence on the streets. minutes, but what is very important that it's a long-lasting protest that is by now spreading in the different cities of Georgia, and there is a much wider discontent toward the regime than what is concretely shown in this protest. So I think that we have not seen the end of that, on the contrary.
I cannot refrain from asking you about another president of Georgia who sadly is still imprisoned in Georgia. I don't want to go into the politics, but what is the latest about his state of health and well-being? Because he is connected to Odessa as well.
He is connected. Apparently his state of health is fine because he is testifying himself in the court when he is called in the court, and he has this chance more than other prisoners to be able to talk directly on the televisions. But I think that the links with Ukraine are very clear, and one way out would be probably extradition.
Okay, and finally, what's going to be your main message today? You're about to appear on the main stage. You're in the Opera House in Odessa. What message would you like to get across, not just to the Ukrainian public, but to the broader international public?
I think that the message is that Ukraine has practically won this part of the war, which is a military war, and that we should all pay more attention to the fact that Russia is now moving to hybrid war. We are the example of hybrid war, and that will concern all of us, and that's another war that we have to win all together.
And for fellow Georgians? For
fellow Georgians to keep on until the end, to fight and to keep independence. Polomde.
Thank you, Madam.
They will all understand what it means.
They will understand. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.